Hello, listeners, and welcome to Rose Red's Storytime. Please, step closer to the fire, get cozy in your favorite chair, relax, and enjoy. Tonight's story is brought to us by Reddit user AmazingLover96. Now, this writer is not afraid to bring us a bit of the disturbing and macabre. So without further ado, a gaming creepypasta. I'm sure by now you have heard of Sonic.exe, Ben Drowned, Mario Kart 64 Driven, the list goes on and on. If you're a strong believer of these stories and expect to see a ghost possess a copy of Super Mario World, or a demon that cries hyper-realistic blood inside of an SNES game, then I would suggest you click off this post. Granted, the stories I mentioned, plus dozens more, are amazing works and great examples of early days of creepypasta. However, my case is much different. Back in 2007, I was diagnosed with depression, and my mother suggested that I go to a group session hosted at a church down the road from us. That is when I met Liz. She was your typical goth girl of that time. She had short, jet black hair. Her MySpace page was infested with satanic mumbo-jumbo as well, and a 3 Days Grace playlist. She wore a lot of those bracelets that if you broke one of them, she owed you a sexual favor. See, our common interest was what developed our friendship. We both loved the movie Mean Girls. We both were childish enough to watch cartoons despite being in the 9th grade. Most of all, it was our love of video games that was the glue that held us together. Liz had a strong interest in video game design. She showed me complete notebooks with complete designs for various games that she had come up with. She told me that her struggle was that she couldn't find a place that could get her feet wet in the game design field. After overhearing our conversation, my older brother told us about SMW Central, a ROM hacking website where she could meet like-minded people that could show her how to modify old games, such as Super Mario World, by hacking the code and making them different. It started out with Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for the NES. She had played the game all the way through and decided on a ridiculous idea. She completely redesigned the game and called it Bill Clinton's Fighting Street. The game was the same, except she had redesigned the sprites for all the fighters into different presidents of the United States, such as Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, all leading up to Bill Clinton. It was pretty hilarious, and was way better than the hard shit hacks that infested the internet at the time. I remember another one called A Link to Gene. It was a hack of A Link to the Past, and the plot involved me, a redesigned sprite of Link to look like me in 16-bit, and involved me saving the Obamas from the evil Republicans, and also using magic to turn all the enemies from McCain supporters to Obama supporters. That was to make fun of the fact that our school was divided due to the 2008 election. And yes, even some fights broke out. That was when I suggested that she sell these hacks. After she sold her hack to Link to the Past, things blew up. You see, her parents were not as fortunate financially as I was, so she spent most of her time slaving away at McDonald's under the thumb of an old, low-life manager that treated her like shit. So when she started making money off hacking games, she was able to quit her shitty job and made lots of money doing what she loved. I remember that she got a ton of requests to make sequels to Super Mario RPG. She made even more funny hacks to Link to the Past, and even Earthbound. She made a complete hack of Earthbound called The Invisible, where she made all the enemies and NPCs of Earthbound invisible. It was complete madness, and made the game really frustrating, but it was really cool. Fast forward to the end of my junior year. I was driving, I had a steady boyfriend, and I was looking into various colleges that I could attend. I hadn't seen Liz in a while, and I figured that she was looking into video game design. When I went to her house, I found her in the basement. Wires slithered across the floor like snakes, and big expensive computer equipment was set up all around the place. It was like a makeshift studio of some sort. I asked her about colleges, and about other things teenage girls talk about. Just going to a local college, she said vaguely. Well, what about all the stuff about game design? I'm still doing that, she muttered. I see you're still making a decent profit from hacking. Meet any new folks on there? She ignored me and went back to what she was doing. I looked at the computer she was using, and it looked like an almost complete hack of Ocarina of Time. Your skills must have really developed. N64 games are crazy hard to Of course I got better, Liz snapped. Why the fuck do you think I keep doing this? Now could you please leave me alone so I can do my fucking work? God! That was the last time I had talked to Liz. Over time, I'd see her around school sometimes, and she would avoid eye contact if I looked in her direction. I can't explain why she went off the deep end like this, but I'd like to think it turned into an addiction, kind of, like when MMO players spend insane amounts of time on their games. It wasn't until my early 20s that Liz crossed my mind again. I was married to my high school sweetheart, and I found him listening to a creepypasta narration by a channel called Let's Read. It was the infamous Ben Drowned pasta, and when he told me that there was footage, I was psyched. After watching it, that is when I thought about the last time I talked to Liz. I spent that night looking into Gaming Creepypasta. I found so many cases of haunted video games with often outlandish things happening, such as Super Mario 64, Damned, and Maria's Revenge. Was this Liz's work? I thought. I knew she was moving on to higher things, but the GameCube seemed a bit advanced for her. But I knew with today's technology, almost anything was possible. The straw that broke the camel's back was when I heard the narration of Mario Kart 64 Driven by Mutahar from Some Ordinary Gamers. I knew that Liz was one for the darker things in life, and a feature like this was one definitely a product of Liz's work. I got on social media and tried to find Liz in hopes of re-establishing contact with her. I didn't find her on any social media, so I Googled her and found out that she was a person of interest in 5 murders and dozens of missing person cases. I was scrolling through Google, and I found a link to an account on an old ROM hacking site called 5 Guys in a Laptop. I remembered that I'd made an account on there because of Liz, but never used it. After 10 minutes of the site's pretty much forgot password procedure, I restored my account. I then messaged Liz. Yo, are you okay? How are you doing these days? Within seconds, an automated message popped up telling me to play her newest hack of Super Punch-Out. I knew she probably wasn't on that site anymore, so I dialed her old cell phone number. Surprisingly, it still worked, but I just got her voicemail, which was still the same as when I last saw her. I then texted her number, and within a few minutes I got a response telling me to go to her house. She still lived at the same address as before. I figured after nearly a decade of living there, she and her parents would have moved. I asked her what time she wanted to meet, and she said that she would like to meet as soon as possible. Since I had the day off, I decided to go down there and see my old friend. When I arrived at the house, I noticed that the door was unlocked. Strange, I thought. The house was covered in a blanket of thick dust. I nearly had a coughing fit when I walked through the door. Catching me off guard, I heard a voice call to me. I'm going to the basement, Jean. I walked into the kitchen and made my way to the basement door. When I made my way down there, a putrid smell kicked me right in the teeth. It wasn't sweat, it was a long-time combination of body odor and rotting food. When I made it to the bottom of the steps, I was shocked at the horrific sight. Empty takeout boxes and burger wrappers littered the floor. A bucket filled with feces and urine sat in the middle of the floor next to the behemoth that was now Liz. She was so obese that the office chair barely supported her weight. Her face and neck had so much fat on it, I was surprised that she could breathe. The couch that we had sat on to binge-watch various scary movies was now covered in pizza boxes and roaches. The whole basement smelled horrendous. "What happened?" I asked, covering my nose. "My life's work, Jean." "You're living like a pig, Liz. I mean, look at this." She ignored my statement. "I know why you came here, Jean," she bellowed. "More importantly, I knew you'd come here. I rehearsed every word that I'd share with you leading up to now. I have gone over it time and time again until this very moment." "What is it you have to tell me?" I asked, hiding my growing concern for her. It was all me. Every pasta, every haunted game story was me. I created it all. The entire genre, all throughout this time. The reason I chewed you out was because I was in the beginning process of creating this fantastic juggernaut of a genre. How did you avoid the cops all this time? You have warrants for your arrest and you face a lot of prison time. It's amazing how shitty the cops are at looking for people they want to put away. I was in Indiana when they came here. That was nearly 2 years ago, and ever since they have looked in places miles from here. But little did they know I was here in Louisville all along. I gave her a fearful look. She then raised up from her chair with a loud grunt. She wore nothing but a t-shirt that looked 2 sizes too small for her. She then wheezed as she made her way to what looked to be a big cardboard box. She cleared the trash as much as she could with her feet, and then dumped the contents of the box into the clearing. Discs and cartridges of all shapes and sizes came out of that box. A chill ran down my spine when I read the names of the games. Sonic.exe, Super Mario 64, The Damned Cartridge, TGTL, The Game That Listens, the Majora cartridge from Ben Drowned, and many more. You did all this? All of the ghosts and demons in those games are my creations. I killed all those assholes who treated me with disrespect that I did not deserve. All those who didn't honor my work became a gaming pasta. It started with that piece of shit manager from McDonald's, then a few people from school. Then came the internet trolls. But people loved you at school, I said. You made so much money from your hacks. They didn't give me the respect I demanded, she growled. That manager became Sonic.exe. The Game That Listens became some of my finest work yet. Just some dumb little bitch in front of a computer screen. And that Ben Drowned kid? Was just some brat that lived with his grandpa. I took him to a creek and held his head under water. You really killed them? I said, shocked at what I heard. I did, but they didn't pass over. You see, the human soul is almost raw information. Code and data. It's all a part of the universe. I took all those souls and made games out of them. They are all my little trophies scattered around the internet. I sold the originals to all those authors who wrote some pastas. I kept all those games you're seeing now as proof of my work. This girl was clearly insane. There is no way she killed people and put them in games. It's pure madness. I reached for my phone to call the police, but was interrupted by the sound of a gun cocking. Put that hand away from that phone, asshole, she said with her thick, nasally voice. I was staring down the barrel of a small revolver. My legs turned to jello. All I wanted to do was run. I wanted to run out of this house and to my car, but the fear that ran through me was more intense than anything in my whole life. You are going to join me in my final creation, my finest work yet. We will terrorize the souls of the ones who tormented me. No, please don't kill me, I begged. She then let out the most blood-curdling high-pitched laugh I had heard in my life. I'm not going to kill you, silly Willy, but your soul is tied to my new world. You will come to me when you die, an old, wrinkly woman in her own filth. After that, you will be mine. Suddenly, she opened her mouth and placed her lips around it. No! Stop! I yelled, running toward her, but before I could get to her, she pulled the trigger, and all I saw next was blood and gray matter. Her creations, her passion, her drive for success drove her to madness and murder, and now she was dead. I called the cops and reported her suicide. After talking for almost an hour with the coroner and the cops, I was able to go home. Liz made local headlines when the police searched her house. The remains of 24 people were found buried in her backyard, and the ashes of 6 more were found in her bedroom. I was appalled, but it goes to show you really don't know people. 6 months later, my husband ordered a Nintendo 64 game from a website called Flashback Entertainment. It was a reproduction cartridge called Kirby 64, The Souls of Darkness. On the cover was a weird redesign of 02 and a red-eyed Kirby. It hit me like a brick. Could this be what she was talking about? I thought. Would I be one of her toys like in Sonic.exe? When I popped it into the console, I was shocked to see what popped up. In dedication to my good friend Jean, we will meet sooner rather than later. Love, Liz. A special thank you for all the support I have received to get this channel started. Your Maker and Bad Vibe Storytelling for pointing me in the right direction. And by the way, if you haven't heard their channels already, please go there and listen because they are absolutely amazing narrators. Also, I would like to thank the horror community as a whole for their constant encouragement to get this up off the ground. Amazing Lover 96, thank you so much for letting me use your story as my get off the ground first story. And of course, I would love to thank my loving husband who has helped me create this space so I can start this adventure. Thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. Until next time, dear listeners, stay safe and remember, even the dead can tell stories.